This House does not know what Labour stands for because they purposely choose to speak in so many tongues, and these pleasantries aren't substantiated by any policy.
And with that, I put the motion before the House. This House does not know what Labour stands for.
Madam President, thank you very much for those kind words. That was very generous of you. And congratulations to all of you for such a successful term thus far. The 1918 Constitution of the newly formed Labour Party declared support for people who work by hand or by brain and promised to represent everyone other than the idle rich, the rent collectors and dividend recipients. Attlee's 1945 government brought in the NHS, something the Labour Party's current website promises to always protect. The governments of the 1960s and 70s abolished the death penalty and brought in the Equal Pay Act. New Labour shifted Labour's identity to a third way, but it still had clear policies with record funding for the NHS, the Human Rights Act, the Civil Partnerships Act, the Good Friday Agreement, and much more. What of these firm, change-making policies today? Under Keir Starmer's Labour, we have no such clear policy. Instead, we are offered 5 missions: to break down barriers to opportunity, to take back our streets, to get the NHS back on its feet, to switch on Great British Energy, and to get Britain building again. This House does not know what Labour stands for because they purposely choose to speak in so many tongues, and these pleasantries aren't substantiated by any policy. They aren't even indicative of principle. We are repeatedly told that their manifesto will lay out their plan, but never has there been the use of a manifesto in a crutch in the same way the current parliamentary Labour Party uses it. Why should we have to wait 4 years until just before an election to know what the Labour Party stands for? Tonight's debate is not a comparison between the 2 major British political parties, nor is it a debate over who you should vote for. Tonight we're debating whether the current parliamentary Labour Party stands for, well, it stands for anything. You will hear 3 very different arguments from side proposition tonight, as we seem to have formed an unlikely Avengers. But tonight I will make 2 points. Firstly, that Labour have reneged on every distinct policy since Keir Starmer was elected leader, without replacing them with anything substantive. Secondly, that the Labour Party are so cautious to not alienate anybody that they have abandoned their politics of representation and substance that this country and their traditional voter base needs. But before I begin, it is my honour and my privilege to introduce tonight's opposition speakers. First up is Anita Akunde, second-year PPE student and the fabulous Director of Media here at the Oxford Union. As well as working here at the Union, Anita was recently nominated in the top 10 of Black Future Leaders in 2023 and 24. She's Vice President of Oxford ACS, a Youth Commissioner for the Wellbeing of Future Generations Bill, and does extensive work for the Labour Party, and the opposition couldn't have anyone better equipped to open the case for them. Secondly, we have Ali Khosravi, a history finalist at Balliol College and the ex-chair of the Oxford University Labour Club. This is my first time meeting Ali, and I'm sure he'll be a wonderful defender of Sir Keir, even if he may have to walk back his 2022 column where he cited promising something you cannot deliver as one of the biggest failures a political leader can have. Third, we have Mr. Joe Moore. Joe was a political advisor to Angela Rayner when she was Shadow Secretary of State for Education, and has since advised Kate Green and become Associate Director at Hamburg Strategy. Joe has been in the room for those late-night Labour strategy talks, and so is well-placed to try and explain why they have lost their way so much. I want to extend a huge thanks to the speakers who have attended tonight's debate and taken up the unenviable task of defending current Labour. To take nothing away from these speakers here tonight, we contacted over 50 Labour MPs over the past 3 months, and despite getting positive responses, it quickly became clear that the Leader's Office were not going to allow any Labour MP to attend. A disappointing case that says a whole lot by itself. Either way, Madam President, these are your speakers, and they are most welcome. Keir Starmer said recently in his weekly LBC slot that unless you have not paid much attention, then you must know what Labour stands for. And he makes a fair point. The media can often obscure a party's sincere intentions with disingenuous reporting, so I decided to pay some close attention and to look at what Keir Starmer and Labour do stand for. Labour objected to the Rwanda bill in the Commons, but whipped every single peer to abstain in the Lords. Starmer has hugely watered down his commitment to House of Lords reform, abandoned electoral reform, nationalisation, self-ID, and dropped almost everything from the very popular 2017 manifesto. Starmer and Wes Streeting have promised to protect the NHS through reform, which is a thinly veiled euphemism for privatisation, and they have stopped supporting striking workers and unions, gone from scrapping tuition fees to maintaining them, dropped promises to reform cannabis possession charges, and went from claiming austerity was a complete mistake to just 2 days ago using language straight from Osborne's austerity playbook to describe the country's maxed out credit card. I could go on. Actually, I will, because at this point in my speech, I was going to congratulate them for doing really well in maintaining their 28 billion Green Pledge. As Keir Starmer described climate change as the issue of our time, but, you can see the pattern. This Labour Party has dropped every policy or commitment in exchange for creating what Keir Starmer described as a bomb-proof campaign platform, which leaves me to suggest that if the Labour Party's policies can't be attacked by the Tories, then you've just written a Tory manifesto. These are all examples from the past year of Starmer's Labour Party reneging on policy, and they haven't been substituted with any alternatives. Starmer seems to have been trying to temper the emotional sentiment of the left with the pragmatism of the right, but as a result, the party has become unrecognisable. Labour posted a screenshot of the Apple Notes app on their Instagram story with a list of New Year's resolutions and only one item under in, which was being the opportunity to change Britain. The Labour Party's own marketing... the Labour Party's own marketing team cannot give us more than one positive reason to vote for them. And their endless defence that they are just not something is not good enough. Keir Starmer said in a recent interview that he has changed the Labour Party in the same way that he will change government. And this is an interesting point. Labour seems to intent to position itself negatively. We are not the Tories. We are not Corbyn. But the Labour Party we see today is not something I describe as united, as any polling of traditional Labour voting demographics will show you, but one where Keir Starmer fundamentally doesn't trust his MPs. They are a party that deselects MPs over supporting workers on strike, over expressing support and solidarity for those in Palestine, and for simply appearing on stage with an award-winning and brilliant director in Ken Loach. That doesn't feel like the most united party. Nor does it feel like a party where the leader trusts his MPs to represent their constituents. The Ford report has been sidelined, left-wing Labour members have been eradicated in their hundreds, and all for the purpose of cozying up to lobbies and business groups and millionaire ex-Tories. This inward focusing fails those who need Labour now more than ever. Labour are better than this, and the electorate deserve better than a leader of a party that offers no substance, yet says, you know where the door is if you disagree with his diktats. The past 2 years of Conservative government have been making a pantomime of politics, and Labour have been content to quietly applaud from the sidelines. However, unlike a normal pantomime, Labour have refused to engage in the crowd participation that is expected. They repeatedly refuse to object, to oppose, and to counter. Instead, we see Labour paying lip service to the right, praising Thatcher, doubling down on Tory immigration policy, and Sir Keir Starmer, the human rights lawyer himself, saying that Israel has the right to cut off food, water, and electricity to 2.5 million people in Gaza. Labour seem to be more comfortable with attracting the most powerful in society than defending and advocating for their traditional voter base. Their only policies are over workers' rights, over childcare, social housing, and their endless rhetoric around fiscal discipline. These flagship policies lack the weight to bring substantive change to those who are worst off, and voters have no security that these pledges will be kept to. The British people need leadership and they need substance. They need to not wait 6 hours for healthcare. They need a reform of the failed universal credit system. They need to have both heating and have food. And they need to not be under a social care system that is punitive and deeply unethical, that caps benefits for single mums but allows bankers a free rein. But Labour refuse to offer alternatives and decline to oppose again and again. And again, they will cite arbitrary fiscal rules and a promise for a politics that treads a little lighter on our lives. Labour are 20 points ahead in the polls, but this is not indicative of standing for something. Starmer is in a position where he will likely win the next general election, but he has no plans, no yardstick with which to measure him by, no proactive ways he can lift the country up, but just some vague truisms. He does not need to do this, but this decision to be overly cautious is a political choice in order to escape being held accountable. This is not what politics is for. It is so tiring to hear people say that he is just not as bad as the other guy. The current Labour Party refused to stand for anything out of fear that the Tories will attack them. They are absent in opposition and at present are offering us nothing to vote for. When you vote tonight on this motion, you'll be voting with your feet. And for some of you, it'll be your first time voting in this chamber. However, in a few months, many of us will vote for the first time in a general election. And we will be voting not with our feet, but with our hands and with our brain and with trust. Tonight is an opportunity to show the Labour Party that they cannot take votes for granted, to show them that young people are not apathetic about politics, but that we care, we have hope, and we need to be able to trust that the politicians we vote for genuinely have our interests at heart, and not the interests of the idle rich. When you walk through those doors tonight, you must vote side proposition, to vote for substance over caution, to vote for progress over palatability, and to vote to demonstrate that the Labour Party must stand for something, otherwise it will achieve nothing and fall for everything. Thank you.